All right. Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started in just about a minute. We're going to let some folks pile in. Hope everybody's doing well on August 6th. Can't believe we're already almost 2/3 through the year. Pretty amazing. Right. Perfect. About one after. So go ahead and get started. Um, Thank you all for joining today. What we're going to cover today is custom analyses in Relativity's aiR for review. And you're going to notice a theme with this deck. I just wanted to call that out real fast. A few weeks ago, Melissa and I presented at Truist Park. For those that aren't baseball fans, either by the imagery or Truist Park name, it's in Atlanta. And we're bringing the ballpark experience to today's webinar because building successful custom analyses is a lot like preparing for game day. You need a clear game plan, the right lineup, discipline execution, and a way to check the final score. So with that, going to jump in, just kind of quickly present ourselves. My name is Andrew Malauskas. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Page One, Relativity Master, 20 years of experience, and yes, I am wearing a Page One baseball jersey. Melissa?
Thanks, Andrew. Hi, everyone. Melissa Maloney. I'm a researcher in our UX department at Relativity. I work on our aiR and AI-related review products. Been at Relativity for over 8 years now, working in both product management and user experience. I forgot my baseball hat today, so just have to go with all of it. All right, so as we kick off, I really want to share a little bit about how we got to where we are today with custom analyses being available, or what we've been doing in spring training, if we're going with the theme here. So some of our observations, teams are really finding great success with aiR for review, where they can use purpose-built analyses types like relevance and issues, and with those get structured outputs that are specific to those use cases. However, we observed many teams were getting really creative with those and kind of working into their prompts, like different things they wanted to see outside of like relevance and key and issues to fulfill other tasks and use cases. So for example, just being able to extract a type of data out of different documents. And so there was a need to be able to do more and kind of trying to get creative to see if aiR for review could do that. Additionally, we also started adding more document-based insights into our purpose-built analysis types like document summaries and topics. And we actually tested a lot more than that as well. And anything beyond summaries and topics, the primary feedback we heard was these are helpful, but I would really want to be able to customize them to make them useful for my different use cases. And so with that, it was really born custom analyses to be an open, flexible solution so teams can define the concept, the criteria, the logic to fit their use cases. And so at the beginning of the year, we started working on this and working in an advanced access program with a subset of users to get feedback on the results, the experience, the feature set, to really help shape what was recently released in general availability. So if you want to move on to the next one. Again, so why we're here, wanted to just share high level on what custom analyses is, and then Andrew's going to go into a lot more of the details and share examples so you can kind of get a feel for what you can do with it. And so custom analyses gives you the ability to build on top of aiR for review to really define it and build something at scale for your own analyses to fit your needs. It offers that extensibility and the ability to classify and extract data, all while being built into like the core functionality that you're used to with aiR for review to be able to define and iterate on a prompt and get the results in that framework. And it's all also has net new functionality in it that supports analysis for native images. So you can go beyond the text-based documents. And so really you can have the ability to configure aiR to work the way you want, all while doing it in the same platform on Relativity One. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Andrew.
Awesome. And just talking, keeping with the game analogy, what does the game manager need to do, right? Obviously, part of it is the scouting report. So, what can custom analyses do today? So, today it can do text analysis. So, if you're trying to analyze extracted text on a document by document level, it can do that. So, if it's something like you need to provide a summary of a particular document, you need a yes or no answer, you need to categorize or label particular information, you can do that, and it's great for communications, forms, policies, contracts, reports, transcripts, essentially anything that is based on text. Then second up, you've got the vision analysis. And so this is essentially where we're analyzing files such as JPEGs, PNGs, and GIFs, images essentially. So think of like construction sites or maybe some drawings or really any kind of image-based material. And so you can do is you can ask visual attributes, see if there's objects, if there's screenshots of X, Y, and Z tool, maybe it's Excel, something like that. We have a handwritten letter, um, and much, much more. So great for photos, screenshots, and image-only exhibits. So how do you configure this? And so, one, we want to make sure we have the right lineup in order. We want to make sure we have that person that's going to be a great leadoff hitter all the way to our uh, just third and fourth batter, home run hitters, sluggers, so to speak. So with that, what we're going to jump in, and so you need a field name, and so essentially you have what's called insights, and so you get up to 5 insights for each particular document. And with that, essentially what we can do is we have our field name, so 50 characters. So think of, I want to extract a total out of a receipt. And then you have a prompt. So this is essentially where you're asking it to find what it needs to do and how to return that information. So maybe you write something like, hey, I'm looking for receipt totals. I want to make sure they're not the subtotals, they're not the gratuity, and that it's the true kind of total result. And I want it to pull back, in US dollar. And so you can pull that information back. Um, as I noted before, each field, you can have up to 5 insights per document. So have that. We'll kind of show exactly what that looks like in just a few moments. Each field run independently, so you can't have like a stacking order currently. And then currently today, the fixed text length output is 3,000 characters. So if you're asking for it to come back and write you 5, 10, 20 pages of text, it will cut off. So just something to be of note. So in order to get that set up, what we need to do is we have our project name up top, some kind of description. Our data source is going to be a safe search that we have in Relativity. So we want it to analyze a certain sector of documents. Um, and so then we can select our text and our vision, which we just kind of covered a moment ago. And then once we have that, essentially Relativity has some pre-baked kind of insights that it has over here on the left, top left. So contains logos, contains signatures, document dates, total amount. And so you can add those as an insight, or you can see our custom insights where we have one where it extracts text out of documents. And then we can add up to 5 insights for those documents. And so here's just a quick example of 5 insights, and we're going to touch on some of the information that we have there in just a moment. And so here's essentially the results of what they look like when they come back from a project by project level, but we're going to jump into what it looks like from an individual document level. So in this example here, we have a handwritten document. Of course, this was created by AI. And so you'll see up the side, we have a few words from the mounds. And if you look at our extracted text over here, you're going to see that we have a few words from the mounds. You can see it's angled. And so for those that are familiar with optical character recognition or OCR, we tried to run it through. It's not going to get anything. Maybe it picks up the P in the hat in the top corner. And so uh, what you can see with custom analyses is it does a phenomenal job. Also provides a quick summary of what we have, and then you can see we've categorized this as a handwritten note, so you can see that down here over here on the left. But what a great job it does, and yes, this is a Greg Maddox reference that we have for this particular data set. Uh, Next up, we have a medical form. And with this, kind of the key item of note is that we've tagged it as a medical form. So something of note there, but you can also see it extracted out all the pain level, all the other information. Um, but another example of what we could do is we could extract out, that this person was struck on a wrist. So if we wanted to see what kind of injury it was or how this person was injured, we could ask it that question to extract that information out. Next up, we have a box score. So with the box score, obviously it's pulling out the text here as well. But the key kind of component that we have is kind of the fifth one down here where it talks about who the winner is. And yes, it should be Cacti. So the final score should be the Phoenix Cacti 5 and the St. Louis Arches were 4. Some text insight results. And so this is essentially looking at text-based documents before the ones we're looking at strictly images. And so looking at the results of those, in this particular instance, this is a Major League Baseball agreement that we have that we made up. Essentially, it just talks about a few different things, essentially, that we extracted out, which is just monetarily, right? So base salary of 8.75 million, that's payable semi-monthly. Sounds great. Sign me up. I used to be a pitcher way back in the day. We have our performance bonus that we sign for number of innings pitched. So we have that available. If the person makes an All-Star, of course, the Cy Young Award, they get a signing bonus there as well. So all this information was extracted out, and we asked it to separate it out by semicolon. So you can kind of see the semicolon, and you can see some of the information in the document. So it's not all stacked next to each other. It wasn't scraping out one particular piece of information. And this is a 5-page document, so you only see the first little bit from each of the pages there. Next up, we have our ballpark grill. Uh, and so we have our baseball text analysis for this. And so what we did is we essentially asked it to pull the total out of the receipt. So we can see our 102.64, 102.64 as we see it down here. So uh, definitely, definitely great. And probably better than $102. It's not too bad for I guess a ballpark visit for food nowadays. So and then also we have our strategy memo. And so this is just an example of us summarizing kind of what's in this particular document and the category that we put in place. And so when we're running this, essentially what makes a good formula, what makes a good result. And so just like in baseball with a 5-tool player, we want to make sure we have the multiple insight information to create the perfect custom analyses. So first up, we need to come up with a topic, right? What are we looking for in this document set? Kind of use the same example before. This is receipt show a meal over $100. We have a single task, so ask it one thing at a time. Are we determining whether the receipt's over $100? And so we have our boundary where we have a positive and negative examples. So we want to make sure you say something like, "Hey, make sure you pull the total. Don't pull the subtotal. Don't pull the tip. Don't make a calculation on your own. Like just look at the information that's provided." And so with this, we want to make sure, if we were coming up with categories, that we provide like an other category or an NA category, just so we know the information that's coming back and being pulled back. And then how do you want it exported? Do you want it in the yes, no field? In this case, do you want it to extract the total? Do you want it to come up with categories? And so in this example down here, you're going to see that we also have an unclear piece as well. So what are some home run use cases? And so just some examples that we have here. We have a corporate investigation, um, you know, bid rigging type information, employment matter, so hostile language, policy concerns. We can extract names, dates, incident details, product liability information where we can summarize or kind of locate or recall defect information, financials, fraud, so normalized amounts of currencies, extract details from dollar amounts, flag unusual payment structure, and then of course our image based, right? And everybody can imagine that's great for really any case with any images, but construction images, handwritten notes, screenshots, unsafe conditions, visual evidence. So lots of great use cases, and these are just some. There are incredibly many more use cases. Even one that we've done recently was someone had handwritten timesheets of many different employees, and so they came to us and they said, "Hey, these people are working. If they work over 4 hours a day, in XYZ state, they're required to take at least a 30-minute lunch." So we essentially built a custom analyses to find where it was 4 or more hours that person worked where they logged 0 or no lunch. And then we were able to find those and flag those documents for the legal team, and they're able to use those examples. Whereas before, with handwriting, right, they're looking at them manually and they're just trying to flip through them just to find those examples. And of course, there's not just 100 because it spanned many years, and so they had close to like 10,000 documents that they were looking for. So we're able to kind of quickly go in and find them a sample that they were looking for. Um, so in order to get this set up, we want to find the document sets that we're most interested in. So we want to isolate a safe search of those documents, draft the information. We want to run a sample, right? We don't want to just assume uh, what we know is true about the document sets, especially in cases where you have 10,000 images or 10,000 documents you want to analyze. There may be some where, in using the example we just talked about the 4 hours that we had, there could be examples where somebody had 8 hours or 3 hours, or they didn't fill in the lunch category, or they put an X through the lunch category, or zero point 0.5. And so you have to account for, what do you do when it's blank? What do you do when the certain number is in there? What if it's equal to exactly that? What if you can't read the information on the page? So lots of different context that comes into play. And so we want to test this information out just to make sure the output is what we expect it to be. So definitely recommend doing that and testing out a sample, and then of course kind of pushing those results out to make sure that we are good to go from that standpoint. Um, and so just kind of taking it into the bottom of the ninth, there are three takeaways to building a better custom analyses. So the first up, choosing a pitch. So defining the single document level question or the output that you need. Square up the swing. So we want to make sure we put roles, boundaries, the edge cases, the formatting that we want, and we want to make sure we check the replay. So bringing it back to being general manager, we want to make sure that we grab a sample, we run it against the sample to kind of confirm the results, and noting that the legal team calls the final results, right? So you, I guess as the attorney, you are the game plan manager, you are a player, and you are also the umpire. So get to play all many hats in that regard. So going to jump in. I'm going to hand it back to Melissa.
Thanks, Andrew. So everything Andrew shared is available today, and I wanted to kind of go into extra innings and share what we're planning for next, and really want to talk about like two buckets of work that we're targeting. The first one being providing more richer analysis inputs and outputs, and the second one is around templatization and more about reusability. So for the first one, um, we've got a lot of great feedback on and seen a lot of great usage on supporting image types as part of custom analyses. And so, of course, the next question is like, I want to be able to do more image types. So right now we're working on PDF. We're also looking at HEIC and TIFF. And I know the list goes on. There's a lot of different use cases to support different images. And so that's one, to be able to expand the support there. Another one is around, especially when you're like extracting and even classifying, you often want consistent structured outputs in how you get the results. And so today we recommend doing that by defining that in the prompt criteria and how you want that. But we know it could be more efficient just to be able to select, like I want to be able to do this multiple choice. Here's the choices, and have those for consistent outputs. So we're working on, as you prompt, being able to say up front what type of structure you want the output in. The next is rationale consideration citations. Those of you familiar with aiR, I'm sure use these often, and we know, especially for certain use cases, these can be really helpful. And so we're looking at adding these in, and depending on, again, like for the use case, which you want to see and when, to be able to provide more evidence and support as you're looking at the results, and to be able to help you decide maybe like where you could do more prompting and make additional enhancements there. And the last one is around context. So context right now is done at the insight level. So within each prompt, you might be providing context. And we know that there may be context that's appropriate at the whole project level. So this context applies to all of the insights. We also know that you might want to be able to pull in context from other areas. So we're looking at what type of context would be helpful to pull in and how you want to display that to make things more efficient too. Moving to the second bucket is kind of self-explanatory, but once you've built out these insights and projects, and you're like, I've built the perfect prompt for now. I want to be able to reuse these if you have like consistent use cases that come up. And so the first one is giving you the ability to save and then reuse insights that you've already tested and are using, so you can use those across workspaces. And then the second one is kind of expanding beyond just the insight, but being able to templatize at the whole project level. So if you've built out a whole project for a certain type of analyses based off of the insights that are in it, to be able to kind of wrap that up and templatize it. And much more to come there as well. And so I'll show you a few examples of some of these on what they could look like, obviously still in the works, but this one is for those structured outputs that I mentioned. So if you can see in the left-hand prompt side, you can see the selection where you could decide, you can see here, it's like long text, single choice, multiple choice. You could decide what type of output you want for that insight so that you'll see it structured that way in the results on the right. And then in the next one, we have the rationale considerations. And so you can see in the results here that for these construction site hazards, we're also exposing the rationale consideration citations if you want to see these as you're reviewing the results. And then the last one is an example around the context. So this is an idea around being able to kind of dynamically inject different data for like additional context rather than having to, so for example, you can see this one, it's matter overview, rather than having to actually pull in the matter overview, you could reference it, and then it could look at that for context for this insight. And I think that's the last one. So obviously, more to come here. We have a lot planned on the roadmap. We work closely with our customers on their feedback and shaping those as we continue.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Melissa. Definitely appreciate your time, and thank you everybody for listening. I know we have a few questions that are coming in on the chat, so going to go ahead and read them out loud, and then Melissa and/or I will answer. So the first up that we have is, does the extracted text for the handwriting then go into DT search index? Melissa, I'll pass that to you because I know the answer, but maybe there's a trick, a roadmap.
Yeah, I don't know, Andrew, have you been using any tricks for that one in your experience?
We're scraping the content off and kind of pushing it back in. So
Okay.
um, so to answer directly for the question, right? The functionality is not there today, but we can scrape it off the page and put it in the extracted text and then build it into a DT search index. That is something that we would have to do, and there's actually a secondary question too that talks about, can you export the content, and so that kind of ties in probably with the first, um, but we would need to go ahead and scrape it off the page and then uh, add it to DT search index.
Yeah, and exporting is a big one too. So right now at the end of the workflow, you can apply that to a field so that you can work with it in other areas of relativity. So that's a big part of like being able to work with it outside of the project. So kind of when you have your prompt in a good place and if you've iterated on it, then you can apply it at the end to write it to that field and be able to work with it out in the document list or be able to pull it out.
Awesome. I think that is it for the questions. Unless anybody else will hang out for a few more seconds in case somebody else has one that's coming in. But I want to thank you all for your time again today. Definitely appreciate it. Um, and this recording will be online for everyone to listen to again. So thank you again, everybody. Appreciate it. Thanks, Melissa. Appreciate you hopping on, and talk to everybody soon.
Of course. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.